I was sitting at my kitchen table in my Scottsdale, Arizona townhouse on a Tuesday morning when I heard the unmistakable crunch of metal meeting metal outside. The sound made my coffee mug pause halfway to my lips, and I felt my stomach drop. That sounded expensive. My name is Xavier Quinton, and I had just moved into the Sunset Ridge community 6 months ago. The place seemed perfect when I signed the papers. Clean streets, well-maintained common areas, reasonable monthly fees. What they did not tell me was that the Homeowners Association president, a woman named Karen Zimmerman, ran the place like her personal fiefdom. She was the type of middle-aged woman who wore expensive athleisure everywhere, despite never actually exercising. Had that particular haircut that screamed, "I want to speak to your manager," and seemed to derive genuine pleasure from making other people's lives difficult. I rushed to my front window and looked out at the visitor parking space where I had left my car last night. My black Toyota Camry sat there, but something was wrong. A white Lexus SUV was pulling away from it at an angle, and I could see from my second-floor vantage point that my rear bumper was definitely not the shape it had been when I parked it. "No, no, no," I muttered, throwing open my front door and taking the stairs 2 at a time. By the time I reached the parking lot, the Lexus was gone, disappearing around the corner toward the main gate. But I had seen enough. That was Karen's car. I had seen it parked in the HOA president's reserved spot enough times to recognize it anywhere. I walked around my Camry, documenting the damage with my phone. The rear bumper was cracked and pushed in on the driver's side, with white paint transfer clearly visible against my black paint. The taillight housing was shattered, pieces of red plastic littering the asphalt below. I took at least 20 photos from every angle, making sure to capture the white paint transfer especially clearly. Then, I remembered the dashcam. I had installed a front and rear dashcam system 3 months ago after someone had sideswiped another car in the complex and driven off. The cameras had parking mode, which meant they activated when they detected motion even when the car was off. My heart was pounding as I got into the driver's seat, carefully avoiding the broken plastic, and pulled out my phone to connect to the dashcam's app. The footage loaded, and there it was in crystal clear 1080p resolution. At 7:23 a.m. that morning, Karen's white Lexus had come around the corner too fast, cut the turn too sharp, and slammed directly into my parked car's rear end. The impact was clearly visible, and so was what happened next. Karen got out of her car, looked around quickly, examined the damage to both vehicles, and then got back in her Lexus and drove away. The whole thing was captured from multiple angles by my front and rear cameras. I saved the footage immediately to my phone and to cloud storage. This was going to be an interesting day. My hands were shaking slightly as I called the non-emergency police line. The dispatcher told me an officer would be out within the hour to take a report. While I waited, I went back upstairs and made copies of the video footage, uploading it to 3 different cloud services. I was not taking any chances with this evidence disappearing. Officer Martinez arrived 45 minutes later, a tired-looking man in his late 30s who had probably seen every type of parking lot incident imaginable. I walked him through what I heard, what I saw, and then showed him the dashcam footage on my phone. His eyebrows went up as he watched Karen hit my car and drive away. "Well, that's pretty clear-cut. Hit and run. Do you know who that is?" Karen Zimmerman. "She's the president of our HOA." Officer Martinez's expression shifted to something between amusement and resignation. "Of course she is. These HOA cases are always something else." He took down all my information, the video footage and Karen's information. I'm going to go have a conversation with Miss Zimmerman. I'll be back. I waited in the parking lot, sitting on the curb near my damaged car. Other residents walked by on their way to work, and a few asked what happened. Word was going to spread fast in a community this size. Sunset Ridge had about 200 units, and gossip traveled at light speed. 20 minutes later, Officer Martinez returned, and he did not look happy. So I spoke with Miss Zimmerman. She claims she never hit your vehicle and has no idea what I'm talking about. She says her car has no damage and she hasn't been in any accidents. Did you look at her car? She wouldn't let me onto her property to examine it without a warrant. But here's the thing. You have clear video evidence of the incident. I'm issuing her a citation for leaving the scene of an accident. She'll have to appear in court or pay the fine. As for the damage to your vehicle, that's a civil matter. You'll need to go through insurance. I nodded, already pulling up my insurance company's app on my phone. Thank you, officer. Keep that video safe. You're going to need it. He handed me a copy of the police report and headed back to his patrol car. I called my insurance company right there in the parking lot. After being on hold for what felt like forever, but was probably only 10 minutes, I got connected to a claims adjuster named Rachel, who listened to my story and requested that I upload the video footage to their secure server. Mr. Quinton, this is actually pretty straightforward, Rachel said after reviewing everything. You have clear evidence of who hit your car, and you have a police report documenting that she left the scene. We'll be going after her insurance company for the damages. I'm going to have an appraiser come out this afternoon to look at your car. In the meantime, we'll get you set up with a rental. That was easier than expected, but I knew the real problems were just beginning. Karen Zimmerman did not strike me as the type of person who would take responsibility gracefully, and she had the entire HOA apparatus at her disposal. I was right to worry. The first letter arrived 3 days later. It was from the Sunset Ridge HOA, on official letterhead, signed by Karen Zimmerman in her capacity as president. The letter informed me that I was in violation of community rules by parking in a visitor space overnight. According to the letter, my assigned parking space was clearly marked, and using visitor parking for personal vehicles was prohibited. I was being fined $200, with additional fines of $50 per day if I continued to violate this rule. I read the letter 3 times, my anger building with each reading. I had been parking in that visitor spot for 6 months because my assigned space was on the complete opposite end of the complex, a 5-minute walk from my front door while the visitor space was directly below my unit. Nobody had ever said anything about it before. Plenty of other residents did the same thing. This was clearly retaliation. I pulled out my copy of the HOA rules and regulations, a thick binder I had received when I closed on the property. I found the parking section and read it carefully. The rule did state that residents should park in their assigned spaces when possible, but the language was vague. It said visitor parking should be reserved primarily for guests, but did not explicitly prohibit residents from using it. The fine structure mentioned was for abandoned vehicles or vehicles parked in fire lanes, not for this situation. I was not going to just roll over for this. I drafted a response letter, keeping my tone professional but firm. I pointed out that the HOA rules did not explicitly prohibit what I had been doing, that I had been doing it for months without complaint, that other residents did the same, and that this felt like retaliation for filing an insurance claim against the HOA president. I sent the letter via certified mail and kept a copy for my records. The next day I got a response. Not a letter this time, but a phone call. My phone rang at 8 in the morning and I answered to hear Karen's voice, sharp and accusatory. Mr. Quinton, This is Karen Zimmerman from the HOA. I received your letter and I have to say, I find your accusations completely inappropriate. Which accusations would those be? I asked, keeping my voice level. You're implying that I hit your car. I never touched your vehicle. I don't know where you got that idea, but you need to stop spreading these lies around the community. I have video footage of you hitting my car, Karen. The police have seen it. My insurance company has seen it. Your citation for leaving the scene of an accident is a matter of public record. There was a pause on the other end of the line. That video is fake, or you're misidentifying the vehicle. My car has no damage. Your car has damage that matches exactly with the damage on mine. There's white paint transfer on my bumper. But that's between you, me, and our insurance companies now. What I want to know is why I'm suddenly being cited for parking violations that have never been an issue before. Those rules have always been in place. Just because they weren't being enforced doesn't mean you weren't violating them. So you admit this is selective enforcement. Because I can document at least a dozen other residents who park in visitor spaces regularly. Are they all getting citations too? Another pause. The HOA board will be reviewing all parking violations going forward. You need to move your car to your assigned space immediately, or the fines will continue to accumulate. I'll move my car when I feel like it. The rules don't support your interpretation, and I'm not paying any fines. Karen's voice went up an octave. You are obligated to follow HOA rules as part of your purchase agreement. If you refuse to pay legitimate fines, we can put a lien on your property. Then I'll see you in court. Have a nice day, Karen. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking again, but this time from anger rather than shock. I had never been the confrontational type, but something about Karen's entitled attitude and blatant lying just set me off. Over the next week, things escalated. I moved my car to my assigned space, but only because I did not want to give Karen any ammunition. 3 days later, I received another letter. This one cited me for having unauthorized items on my patio. The unauthorized items in question were a small barbecue grill and 2 folding chairs. I had seen dozens of patios in the complex with grills, chairs, plants, and various other items. Mine was actually one of the more sparse ones. I took photos of 10 other patios that had far more items than mine, printed them out, and sent another response letter to the HOA. I also started documenting everything. Every interaction, every letter, every rule citation. I had a feeling I was going to need all of it. My insurance company's appraiser had estimated the damage to my car at $3,200. The rear bumper needed to be replaced. The taillight assembly had to be replaced. And there was some additional damage to the rear quarter panel that needed body work and repainting. Rachel from my insurance company told me they had contacted Karen's insurance company, State Farm, and submitted the claim with all the evidence. 2 weeks after the accident, I got a call from a State Farm adjuster named Dennis. He sounded exhausted. Mr. Quinton, I've reviewed your claim and the evidence you provided. I have to tell you, this is one of the more clear-cut cases I've seen. The video footage leaves no doubt about what happened. However, our insured is denying the accident occurred. She claims the damage to her vehicle came from a different incident and is unrelated to your claim. So, what does that mean for me? It means we're going to have to do a more thorough investigation. I need to inspect both vehicles. Can you bring your car to one of our approved repair shops? I'll arrange to inspect Miss Zimmerman's vehicle as well. I agreed and made an appointment for the following day. The repair shop was in Temp, about 20 minutes from my place. The technician there, a guy named Marcus who looked like he had been working on cars since before I was born, walked around my Camry and shook his head. "That's a pretty solid hit. See how the bumpers pushed in at this angle? That tells me the other vehicle was higher up, like an SUV. And this white paint transfer is fresh. Happened recently. Dennis, the insurance adjuster, showed up and took his own photos, measurements, and paint samples. This all matches what I saw in the video. Now I just need to compare it to the other vehicle." "Good luck with that," I said. "She's not exactly cooperative." "We have our ways," Dennis said with a slight grin. I drove home in my rental car, a basic Nissan Sentra that was perfectly functional but lacked the comfort of my own vehicle. As I pulled into Sunset Ridge, I saw Karen in the parking lot, talking to another resident. She spotted me and immediately stopped talking, her eyes following my rental car as I parked. The look she gave me could have curdled milk. The next day, I got a group email from the HOA. It was addressed to all residents and announced a special assessment of $500 per unit to cover unexpected maintenance costs. The email was vague about what these costs were, but I had a sinking feeling this was another way for Karen to get back at me. If she could not find me directly, she would spread the pain across the whole community and make me the bad guy. I forwarded the email to a lawyer friend of mine, David, who practiced in Phoenix. He called me back within an hour. "Xavier, this smells fishy. HOAs can do special assessments, but they usually need to provide detailed justification and sometimes require a vote. Does your HOA's governing documents say anything about this?" I pulled up the digital copy of the documents and searched for special assessment. There it was. Special assessments over $250 per unit required a vote of the board, with at least 3 of the 5 board members approving. The assessment also had to be announced at least 30 days in advance with a detailed breakdown of costs. "This isn't legal according to their own rules," I told David. "Then you need to challenge it. Write to the HOA board, CC all the board members, and point out the violation. If they ignore it, you might need to lawyer up for real." I sent the email that night, addressing it to all 5 board members. Karen was president, and the other 4 were people I had seen around the complex but never really talked to. A woman named Patricia who lived 2 buildings over, a retired guy named Robert, a younger woman named Michelle who worked from home, and a man named Tom who I had seen at the community pool a few times. The response came from Patricia 2 days later. She replied all, which meant everyone could see it. "Mr. Quinton, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I was not aware that a special assessment had been announced. As a board member, I did not vote on this. I'm requesting an emergency board meeting to discuss this matter." That was interesting. So Karen had sent out the assessment without board approval. That was a serious violation of the HOA's rules. The emergency meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday at 7 p.m. in the community clubhouse. I marked it on my calendar. This was going to be interesting. In the meantime, Dennis from State Farm called me with an update. I was able to inspect Miss Zimmerman's vehicle. She was not happy about it, but her insurance policy requires her to cooperate with our investigation. The damage to her vehicle matches the damage to yours. The height and angle of the impact points correspond perfectly, and the black paint transfer on her car matches your vehicle. I'm approving your claim. We're covering the full repair cost plus your rental vehicle. What about Karen's claim that it was a different incident? She can claim whatever she wants, but the evidence doesn't support it. The paint transfer is fresh, matching the date of your incident. The damage pattern is consistent with your video footage, and frankly, the video itself is pretty damning. This is an open and shut case. We'll be pursuing subrogation against her. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Thank you, Dennis. No problem. You should have your car back within a week once you schedule the repairs. I scheduled the repairs immediately. Marcus at the shop said he could have it done in 5 days, which would have my car back to me by the following Wednesday. Thursday arrived, and I showed up to the emergency HOA board meeting 15 minutes early. The clubhouse was a modest building with a main room that had a kitchenette on one side and some folding tables and chairs set up in the middle. About 20 other residents were already there, which was unusual. Normally, these meetings drew maybe 5 people at most. Word had gotten around about the illegal special assessment, and people were not happy. Karen arrived right at 7, looking flustered. She sat up at the head table with a stack of papers, and the other 4 board members filtered in over the next few minutes. Patricia gave Karen a look that could have frozen lava. Karen called the meeting to order and tried to start with standard business, but Patricia cut her off immediately. "I'm sorry, Karen, but we need to address the special assessment that was sent out without board approval. That's why we're here." A murmur of agreement went through the assembled residents. Karen's face went red. The assessment was necessary for urgent repairs to the community pool filtration system. As president, I have some discretionary authority for emergency situations. Your discretionary authority caps at $200, Robert, the retired board member said. He had a printout of the HOA bylaws in front of him. Anything over that requires a board vote. This is $500 per unit. That's $100,000 total. You can't authorize that on your own. The pool is a health hazard. We could be shut down if we don't fix it immediately. Tom, the board member I had seen at the pool, raised his hand. I was at the pool yesterday. It seemed fine. What exactly is wrong with the filtration system? Karen shuffled through her papers. I have quotes here from 3 different pool companies. They all indicated that the filtration system is outdated and needs to be replaced. Patricia held out her hand. "May I see those quotes?" Karen hesitated, then passed them over. Patricia read through them, her frown deepening. "Karen, these quotes are for upgrading the system to a newer model with additional features. None of them say the current system is broken or a health hazard. This isn't an emergency repair. This is an elective upgrade." The room erupted. Residents started shouting questions at Karen, asking why she was trying to push through an expensive upgrade without proper authorization, why she had misrepresented it as an emergency, and whether any of this had to do with the rumors about her hitting someone's car and trying to cover it up. That last question came from an older woman I had seen walking her dog around the complex. All eyes turned to me. I stood up. "Since it's been brought up, yes, Karen hit my parked car 2 weeks ago and drove away. I have video footage of the incident." The police issued her a citation for leaving the scene of an accident. Her insurance company has acknowledged liability and is paying for my repairs. Since then, I've received multiple citations for HOA violations that have never been enforced before, and that other residents are also guilty of without receiving citations. This feels like retaliation. The room got very quiet. Then Patricia spoke up. "Mr. Quinton, do you have documentation of these violations and the selective enforcement?" "I do. I have copies of all the letters I've received from the HOA, photos showing other residents doing the same things I was cited for, and correspondence showing that this enforcement started immediately after the accident. I'd like to see that documentation." If a board member is using their position to retaliate against a resident, that's a serious issue. I had brought my laptop, anticipating this might come up. I opened it and pulled up the folder where I had been storing everything. Patricia came over and reviewed it all, her expression getting darker by the minute. "This is completely inappropriate," she said, looking at Karen. You've been issuing violation notices without board approval. According to our bylaws, violation notices have to be reviewed by at least 2 board members before being sent out. Did anyone else see these before they went out? Karen was gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles were white. I'm the president. I'm responsible for enforcing community standards. You're not a dictator, Robert said. You have to follow the same rules as everyone else. Actually, you have to follow them more carefully because you're in a position of authority. Michelle, who had been quiet up to this point, spoke up. I move that we suspend Karen Zimmerman from her position as president pending a full review of her actions. I second that motion, Tom said immediately. Patricia called for a vote. 4 hands went up. Karen's hand stayed down, her face pale with fury. The motion passes. Karen, you're suspended from your duties as president effective immediately. Patricia, as vice president, you'll be assuming presidential duties for now. We'll schedule a full board meeting for next week to go through all of this in detail. Karen stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. This is ridiculous. I've been running this HOA for 3 years. I've kept this community running smoothly, and this is how you treat me, over some fake accusations from someone who can't follow simple parking rules. The accusations aren't fake, I said, keeping my voice calm. I have video evidence. The police have the evidence. Your own insurance company has accepted liability. You're the one who chose to lie about it and then retaliate against me instead of just taking responsibility. Karen grabbed her papers and stormed out of the clubhouse. The door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle the windows. The meeting continued for another hour. Patricia apologized to me on behalf of the board and said all the violation notices I had received were being rescinded. The special assessment was officially canceled, and they would be sending out a community-wide email explaining what had happened. As residents filed out, several came up to me to thank me for speaking up. Apparently, Karen had been pulling similar stunts with other people, but nobody had wanted to be the one to challenge her. I had just been the unlucky catalyst that brought it all to a head. I went home feeling cautiously optimistic. Maybe this would all blow over now that Karen was suspended. Maybe she would take responsibility, pay for the damage through her insurance, and we could all move on. I should have known better. The next morning, I found a note taped to my door. It was handwritten, not on HOA letterhead, and the handwriting was shaky and aggressive. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. You're going to regret this. I took a photo of the note and texted it to Officer Martinez, who had given me his card after the initial accident report. He called me back within minutes. That's concerning. It could be considered a threat. Do you have any security cameras? Just the Dashcam in my car. You might want to consider getting a doorbell camera or something for your unit, just in case. I ordered a Ring doorbell camera that day and had it installed by that evening. I also started parking my rental car in the assigned space with a clear view of my front door from my window. Wednesday came, and I picked up my Camry from the repair shop. Marcus had done an excellent job. The car looked brand new, the bumper perfectly aligned, the paint matching seamlessly. You would never know it had been hit. Your insurance company already paid us, Marcus said, handing me the keys. You're all set. And hey, keep that Dashcam running. Sounds like you might need it again. I drove home in my own car, happy to be rid of the rental. When I got to Sunset Ridge, I saw a small crowd gathered near the community pool. Curious, I parked and walked over. Patricia was there, along with Tom and Robert. They were talking to a police officer. Not Officer Martinez this time, but a different officer, a woman named Officer Chen. What's going on? I asked Tom. Someone vandalized the pool equipment last night, smashed up the control panel. It's going to cost a few thousand to fix. My stomach dropped. Do they know who did it? Not yet. But the community association has a security camera pointed at the pool gate. They're reviewing the footage now. Officer Chen looked up from her conversation with Patricia and saw me. Are you Xavier Quinton? Yes, that's me. I'd like to talk to you for a minute if you have time. We walked a short distance away from the crowd. Officer Chen pulled out a notebook. I understand you've been having issues with the former HOA president, Karen Zimmerman. Former. As of last night, the board voted to remove her completely. But yes, we've been having issues. She hit my car and denied it, then retaliated with fake HOA violations. And you received a threatening note yesterday. Yes. I reported it to Officer Martinez. I have a photo of it. Can you send that to me? She gave me her email address, and I sent the photo right there. The reason I ask is that the pool vandalism happened sometime between 11 p.m. last night and 6 a.m. this morning. The security camera caught someone in a hooded jacket, but the angle isn't great. However, there's a moment where you can see the person's face, and it looks like it might be a woman in her 40s or 50s. Given the timing and the context of the HOA issues, we're looking into whether this might be connected. You think Karen vandalized the pool? I think it's a possibility we need to investigate. Do you know what kind of car she drives? White Lexus SUV. I have the license plate in my phone from the accident. I pulled up the photos from the accident and showed Officer Chen the license plate. Thank you, that's helpful. She made a note. We'll be following up on this. If you receive any more threatening messages or notice anything suspicious, please call us immediately. I promised I would and went back to my townhouse. This was getting out of hand. Karen had gone from denying a simple accident to potentially committing criminal vandalism. What was she thinking? The answer came 2 days later. I was at work, teaching a marketing class at Arizona State University, when I got a call from Patricia. Xavier, I wanted to give you a heads up. The police arrested Karen this morning. I stepped out of my office into the hallway for privacy. For the pool vandalism. Yes, the security footage showed her car arriving at the complex at 11:30 p.m. She parked near the pool, went in with what looked like a crowbar and smashed up the control panel. She thought she was out of view of the camera, but the wide-angle lens caught her. The footage is clear enough that you can see her face when she turns toward the gate. Why would she do that? That's insane. The police think she was trying to create an actual emergency that would justify the special assessment. If the pool was really damaged, the board would have to approve emergency repairs, and she could claim she was right all along about needing the money. It's a really twisted logic, but that's what they're thinking. I leaned against the wall, processing this. That's honestly kind of sad. She destroyed community property just to be right about something. It gets worse. When the police searched her house to gather evidence about the vandalism, they found documents showing she had been embezzling from the HOA. Small amounts over the past 2 years, but it adds up to about $15,000. She was hiding it in the budget as miscellaneous expenses. Oh my God. The board is meeting with a lawyer this afternoon. This is a mess, Xavier, but I wanted to thank you. If you hadn't pushed back on her retaliation, if you hadn't documented everything and made us look closer at how she was running things, we never would have found out about any of this. I just wanted my car fixed, I said, feeling overwhelmed. I didn't want any of this. I know. But sometimes doing the right thing for yourself exposes bigger problems. Anyway, I'll keep you updated. The HOA will be covering the pool repairs out of our reserves, so there won't be any assessment. And we're looking into recovering the embezzled funds through the insurance we have for this kind of thing. After we hung up, I sat in my office for a while, staring at nothing. A simple hit-and-run accident had unraveled an entire HOA presidency and exposed embezzlement and vandalism. It felt surreal. The story made the local news that evening. Scottsdale HOA president arrested for vandalism and embezzlement was the headline on Channel 12. They had a clip of Karen being led out of her house in handcuffs, her face covered by her hair. The reporter mentioned that the investigation started after the president was caught on camera fleeing the scene of a car accident. My phone started buzzing with texts from neighbors. Some were thanking me, others were asking for details, a few were just gossiping. I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb and made myself dinner. Over the next few weeks, the legal proceedings unfolded. Karen was charged with criminal vandalism, embezzlement, and leaving the scene of an accident. Her lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor was not interested in going easy on her. The embezzlement and vandalism were serious crimes, and there was video evidence of both. On the civil side, State Farm officially paid out my claim in full. My car was fixed, my rental was returned, and I received a check for the depreciation in my vehicle's value due to the accident. Dennis from State Farm told me they were pursuing Karen directly for the costs since she had fled the scene, which invalidated certain protections under her policy. The HOA board, now led by Patricia, hired a forensic accountant to go through all of Karen's records. They found that the embezzlement went back even further than initially thought. Over 3 years, she had taken almost $30,000. She had been using it for personal expenses, spa days, dinners, shopping trips. The HOA's insurance covered most of the loss, but they also filed a civil suit against Karen to recover the funds. I attended the trial when it finally happened in late July. The courthouse in downtown Phoenix was busy, full of people dealing with various legal matters. Karen's trial was in a smaller courtroom, not one of the big dramatic ones you see on TV. She sat at the defense table looking smaller than I remembered, her expensive clothes replaced with a simple gray dress, her hair pulled back in a plain ponytail. The prosecutor laid out the evidence methodically. The dashcam footage of the hit and run was shown to the jury. Several residents testified about the retaliatory violations. The security camera footage of Karen vandalizing the pool was played, and you could hear gasps from the jury when her face became visible in the frame. The forensic accountant explained the embezzlement with charts and bank statements showing where the money had gone. Karen's lawyer tried to paint her as someone who had been under stress, who had made mistakes, but did not deserve prison time. He argued that she had served the community for years, that she had genuinely tried to improve Sunset Ridge, and that her actions came from a place of frustration rather than malice. The jury did not buy it. After 2 days of testimony and 3 hours of deliberation, they came back with guilty verdicts on all counts. The sentencing happened 2 weeks later. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s who had clearly seen plenty of cases like this before. She looked at Karen over her reading glasses and spoke in a measured tone. "Miss Zimmerman, you held a position of trust in your community. People relied on you to manage their shared resources responsibly. Instead, you stole from them, you lied to them, and when you were caught, you committed additional crimes to try to cover your tracks. The hit and run might have been a moment of panic, but everything that came after was calculated. You tried to abuse your power to punish someone for holding you accountable. That shows a pattern of behavior that this court cannot overlook." Karen was sentenced to 18 months in prison for the embezzlement, 6 months for the vandalism to run concurrently, and received a suspended sentence for the hit and run with 2 years probation after her release. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA and to me for the insurance deductible and other costs I had incurred. I watched as the bailiff led her away. Part of me felt sorry for her. She had destroyed her life over pride and an inability to admit she had made a mistake. If she had just stopped after the accident, apologized, let her insurance handle it, none of the rest would have happened. But she had chosen to double down, then triple down, until there was no way out. After the sentencing, Patricia found me in the courthouse hallway. "Thank you for seeing this through. I know it's been a lot." "It was more than I bargained for when I bought a townhouse," I said with a tired laugh. "The board wants to do something for you. We're going to give you a credit towards 6 months of HOA fees. It's not much, but it's our way of acknowledging what you went through." "That's not necessary." "Maybe not, but we want to do it anyway. You stood up when you could have just let it go. That matters." Life in Sunset Ridge slowly returned to normal. The board elected a new president, a calm, retired engineer named Frank who ran meetings with quiet efficiency. They implemented new financial controls so that no one person could move money around without oversight. The pool was repaired and actually looked better than before. The community felt different, more engaged. People actually showed up to HOA meetings now, wanting to make sure nothing like the Karen situation ever happened again. I still parked in my assigned space, not wanting to give anyone any reason to complain. My dashcam kept recording every drive, every night in parking mode. I had learned the value of documentation. 6 months after the trial, I was coming home from work when I saw someone moving into the unit Karen had lived in. A young couple with a baby were unloading a moving truck. I stopped to introduce myself, welcomed them to the community, and gave them the same advice everyone should get when they move into an HOA. Read the rules, keep records of everything, and get a dashcam. "Why a dashcam?" the husband asked. I looked at my car, the bumper that had been perfectly repaired, no trace of the damage that had started everything. "Just trust me. You never know when you might need it." They nodded, probably thinking I was just being paranoid. Maybe I was. But I had learned that sometimes small incidents reveal bigger problems, and the only way to protect yourself was to have the truth on your side. I went upstairs to my townhouse, made myself dinner, and sat on my patio with the grill and chairs that were no longer the subject of violation notices. The Arizona sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere across town, Karen was in prison, probably still convinced that she had been the victim in all of this. Her insurance had paid out every penny I was owed, the repairs were perfect, and my life had returned to normal. It had been exhausting, frustrating, and at times frightening. But in the end, the truth had won out. The dashcam footage had been irrefutable. The paper trail of her embezzlement had been clear. The security video of her vandalism had left no doubt. She had been caught in her lies by technology and her own arrogance. I thought about that moment when I heard the crunch of metal outside my window. If I had not had the dashcam, it would have been my word against hers. She could have gotten away with it, continued to embezzle, continued to abuse her power. The accident had been the thread that, when pulled, unraveled everything. The HOA lawsuit against Karen for restitution was still ongoing. Her lawyer was arguing she did not have the money to pay back what she had stolen, but the forensic accountant had found evidence of hidden accounts. It would take time, but the community would likely recover most of what was taken. As for me, I was just glad to have my car back in one piece and to live in a community that was now being run properly. I had learned more about HOA law, insurance claims, and criminal procedure than I ever wanted to know. I had documentation skills that would rival any paralegal. and I had a healthy skepticism of anyone in a position of power who was not willing to admit when they made a mistake. The next HOA meeting was on a Thursday. I decided to attend, something I had not done before all of this started. The clubhouse was full, at least 50 residents packed in. Frank ran the meeting smoothly, presenting the budget, discussing maintenance issues, and answering questions. Everything was transparent, documented, and voted on properly. During the open comment period, an elderly woman named Dorothy stood up. She lived in the building next to mine. "I just want to say that this community feels different now. Better. We went through something difficult, but we came out stronger. I'm glad we have board members who care about doing things right." There was applause. People were proud of their community again, not just resigned to it. That was worth something. After the meeting, Frank approached me. "Xavier, we have an opening on the board. Michelle is moving out of state for a job. Would you be interested in joining? We could use someone who pays attention to details and is not afraid to ask questions." I considered it. A few months ago, I would have said no immediately. I had never wanted to be involved in HOA politics. But now, I understood how important it was to have good people in these positions. Communities like this only worked when residents were engaged and held their leaders accountable. "Let me think about it," I said. "Fair enough. Let me know by next week." I drove home that night thinking about responsibility and community. I had just wanted to live somewhere nice, park my car, go to work, and live my life. But being part of a community meant more than that. It meant paying attention, speaking up when something was wrong, and sometimes taking on responsibility even when you did not want to. 2 weeks later, I joined the HOA board as the newest member. My first vote was to approve updated security cameras throughout the complex. My second was to require annual financial audits by an independent third party. Small steps, but important ones. Karen's story became something of a legend in Scottsdale HOA circles. I heard through the grapevine that other communities were implementing similar oversight policies, not wanting to end up with their own embezzlement scandal. The local news did a follow-up story about HOA accountability, using our situation as the prime example. I still have the dashcam footage saved in 3 different places. Occasionally, when I need a reminder of why documentation matters, I watch it. Karen's white Lexus coming around the corner too fast, the impact, her getting out and looking around, then driving away. It was the domino that started everything falling. My car runs perfectly. The repair work was so good that even I forget sometimes that it was ever damaged. The insurance payout covered everything, just like Dennis promised. State Farm pursued Karen for the costs and eventually got a judgment against her, though collecting it was another matter. On a Saturday morning in October, almost a year after the initial accident, I was washing my car in the parking lot when a woman I did not recognize approached me. She was middle-aged, nicely dressed, and looked uncomfortable. "Are you Xavier Quinton?" she asked. "Yes, that's me. I'm Jennifer Zimmerman, Karen's sister." I put down the sponge I was holding. "Oh, I'm sorry, I did not know she had family in the area. I live in Tucson. I drove up because I wanted to talk to you. Karen's not allowed to contact you because of the restraining order, but I wanted you to know that she's getting help. She's in therapy, working through a lot of issues. The prison has programs. That's good to hear. I also wanted to apologize. I know she put you through hell. I knew she was stressed about running the HOA, but I had no idea she was stealing or that she'd retaliate against someone like that. Our family is ashamed. You don't need to apologize for her actions. She's an adult who made her own choices." Jennifer nodded, her eyes watering slightly. "I just wanted you to know that we're not all like that, and I hope your car is okay now." "It is. The insurance took care of everything." "Good. That's good. She hesitated, then added, "For what it's worth, I'm glad you had that camera." If you hadn't, she probably would have kept going down that path. Maybe this was the wake-up call she needed. After Jennifer left, I finished washing my car and thought about second chances. Karen would get out of prison eventually, hopefully having learned something from the experience. Maybe she would rebuild her life, make better choices. Or maybe she would remain bitter and resentful, convinced she had been the victim. Either way, it was not my problem anymore. The HOA was thriving under new leadership. We had repainted the common areas, updated the landscaping, and built a small dog park that had become very popular. The finances were transparent, the meetings were well attended, and people actually seemed happy to live there. I got to know my neighbors better through the board meetings and community events. There was Dorothy, who had lived in Sunset Ridge for 20 years and had stories about the community's history. There was James, a software engineer who helped us set up a new community website. There was Sarah, a nurse who organized a neighborhood watch program. These were good people who cared about their homes and each other. My teaching job at ASU was going well. I had gotten a small promotion, was working on a research project about consumer behavior, and generally felt like my life was on track. The HOA drama had been a disruption, but it was over now. Life had returned to the pleasant routine I had wanted when I first moved in. On the anniversary of the accident, I found myself sitting in my car in that same visitor parking spot where it had all started. I had moved my car there intentionally, a small act of reclaiming space. The dashcam was running, as always. The spot looked the same, but everything was different. I thought about how one moment can change everything, how a person's refusal to take responsibility can spiral into disaster, how having evidence can be the difference between justice and injustice, how communities work when people care enough to pay attention and speak up. My phone buzzed with a text from David, my lawyer friend. Saw that Karen's appeal was denied. Final closure for you. Yeah, I typed back. Finally done. Karen had appealed her conviction, arguing that some evidence should have been excluded and that her sentence was too harsh. The appeals court had rejected all her arguments. The conviction stood. She would serve her full sentence. I started my car and drove to my assigned parking space. As I walked to my townhouse, I saw Frank putting up a notice on the community board. It was an announcement about our next meeting and a call for volunteers for a community cleanup day. "You coming to the cleanup?" Frank asked when he saw me. "Yeah, I'll be there." "Good. We need people like you involved. Makes a difference." I went inside, made coffee, and sat on my patio. The grill was heating up for some chicken I was planning to cook for dinner. The chairs were comfortable. The view was nice. This was the life I had wanted when I moved here, just with a detour through something I never could have anticipated. The doorbell camera I had installed after the threatening note gave me a notification. A delivery driver was dropping off a package. I pulled up the app and watched him set it by my door and leave. Technology had become my friend in all of this. The dashcam, the doorbell camera, the documentation. It had all mattered. That evening I grilled the chicken and invited a few neighbors over. Dorothy came, and James and Sarah. We ate and talked and laughed. Nobody mentioned Karen or the trial or any of it. We were just neighbors enjoying a Saturday evening together. As the sun set and my guests left, I cleaned up and reflected on everything that had happened. I had moved to Sunset Ridge looking for a simple life. I had ended up being part of exposing corruption, enduring retaliation, sitting through a trial, and ultimately helping to rebuild a community. It was not what I had planned, but it was what I had gotten. The next morning I woke up early and went for a run around the complex. The air was cool, the sky clear. Other early risers were out walking dogs or heading to the gym. I waved to people I knew, smiled at people I did not. This was my community, for better or worse. When I got back to my townhouse, I saw Patricia putting a notice on the community board next to Frank's cleanup announcement. It was about new security measures being installed, better lighting in the parking areas, more cameras. The community was learning from what had happened, making changes to prevent future problems. "Morning, Xavier," Patricia called out. "Morning. Those new cameras going in soon. Next week. Frank negotiated a good deal with a security company. Should make everyone feel safer." "Good, that's good." I went inside, showered, and got ready for the week ahead. Classes to teach, meetings to attend, the normal rhythm of life. The HOA board meeting was on Thursday. We would discuss the budget for next year, approve some landscaping changes, and deal with whatever small issues came up. Normal, boring, exactly as it should be. My Camry sat in its assigned space, gleaming in the morning sun. The bumper that had been crushed and replaced was perfect. The paint matched flawlessly. You would never know anything had happened, but I knew. I had the video footage, the police reports, the court documents. I had lived through all of it. Karen Zimmerman had hit my parked car and denied it. The dashcam had caught her. Her insurance had paid for everything eventually. But the real story was so much bigger than a simple car accident. It was about accountability, about what happens when people abuse power, about the importance of standing up for yourself even when it is difficult. I had never wanted to be a hero or a whistleblower. I had just wanted my car fixed. But sometimes life gives you more than you ask for, and you have to deal with it. I had dealt with it, and I had come out okay on the other side. As I sat at my kitchen table with my morning coffee, I pulled up the Dashcam app on my phone and checked the settings. Everything was working perfectly. The camera was charged, the storage was clear, the Wi-Fi connection was strong. If anything ever happened again, I would be ready. But more than that, I had learned to pay attention, to document things, to ask questions, to not let people in positions of authority abuse their power unchallenged. These were lessons that went beyond HOAs and car accidents. They were lessons about being an engaged citizen, about taking responsibility for your community, about not looking away when something is wrong. Karen's prison sentence would end eventually. She would be released, probably move somewhere else, hopefully rebuild her life. I did not wish her ill. I just wanted her to understand that actions have consequences, that lying and retaliation and abuse of power are not acceptable. Whether she learned that lesson was up to her. As for me, I was exactly where I wanted to be. In a community that worked, with neighbors I respected, in a home I loved. It had taken a difficult journey to get here, but it was worth it. Every time I parked my car, every time I attended an HOA meeting, every time I sat on my patio and looked out at Sunset Ridge, I felt that satisfaction. The dashcam footage that caught Karen hitting my car would remain saved forever, a digital artifact of a moment that changed everything. Her insurance had paid for every penny of damage, just as they should have. Justice had been served. The community had been cleaned up. Life had moved on, and I would never, ever buy a house in an HOA again without a dashcam installed first.